All right. Well, we'll get started. Good evening, everybody. For those who don't know, I see a couple new faces in here. My name's Josh, Josh Cook. Also go by Cujo, um, and we regularly host these every 2 weeks. It gives us time to kind of jump in with you guys and let you know what's going on. Obviously, lately with the happenings, regulation type stuff has been kind of slow going. Although I do have a couple of articles on some stuff that's going on with the FAA tonight. But most of it is just stuff that's in process. Obviously, remote ID. We're expecting stuff to come out of that this December. For those who are kind of waiting with bated breath, as we are on that information to come out of the FAA. However, this evening I do have quite a few articles of what's going on with UAS in general, drones in general. And the biggest news story that kind of racked my news feed search was Amazon's drone program has been cleared by the FAA. So they have gotten their waivers through the FAA to begin uh, drone delivery, which has been in process at Amazon through their Primaire service. Started in 2013 and has done a couple of test deliveries. The cool thing about the article, which let me post, this is from Business Insider, is it shows kind of the progress at the different drones that Amazon has kind of prototyped. Some of them being almost like giant tiny whoops, which is obviously the one posted in the link there, to another one that almost looks like a racing drone that can carry up to 5 pounds. So yeah, it's going to be interesting how they're going to make this work. But they've been testing different types of drones in different countries to kind of gauge the difference of the effectiveness of each model and how that's going to work. But they are saying that. Let me see if I can copy this, paste it here. This is going to be probably the closest. Well, that didn't work. Let me get a different one.
Leaves a
Good
little up to
photo.
the imagination there. Hey,
This will
Bruce,
be
welcome.
probably be the closest one to final version. So this one they're saying can uh, carry up to 5 pounds. So obviously the packages are going to be smaller, but they do have some like fixed wing variants and whatnot, and so
Yeah, that
pretty
looks
interesting on
really
the
weird.
progression.
They must use that hexagonal shape thing sort of as a wing of sorts.
That's what it
Yeah, it
looks
looks
like,
like
yeah.
it. Yeah, it does look like it has an airfoil to it. So pretty interesting and definitely a hexacopter. So get your lawn mowed for free. That's awesome. So we've talked about how drone delivery could potentially work, and there's been studies on it that in populated areas like bigger cities and whatnot, it's not quite as effective as ground delivery, but in rural areas where people are like spread further apart, it tends to make a little more sense. However, you still get the issue of drones and landing in your backyard, your kids, your dogs, your cats running up to it, and this one, depending on how they plan on dropping packages, would be interesting as well to
Yeah, I
see.
swear
So,
everybody who works on that must live in a suburb with no trees or anything. Like, I just
right.
can't imagine tree-covered mountainous areas how a drone delivery is going to work.
So, but pretty interesting. Um, can that design stack? They got a stack, maybe even share charging in a stack to be a final concept. Yeah, I'm not sure how they would do that. It seems in my head, it seems more efficient to have a vehicle, a ground-based vehicle that can make deliveries both by ground and then have maybe a launching platform for these things. But again, I don't know. It'd be pretty interesting, as well as battery life on these things. Trebuchet, there you go. Just launch it with a trebuchet. That would be hilarious. I would pay money to see that.
Well, doesn't somebody
So,
have like a grenade launcher version of a drone they can shoot in the air and then it takes off?
yeah,
There's something like that.
there was, and it's like it's I don't know if it was what military branch, but you could launch it out of a tube and then like it would deploy. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, it seems I would agree with you, Wash Bucket, that people would I don't know people would tend to potentially take these things down for
I
whatever
was just
reason.
happened to be flying my kite really crazily in the sky, and this drone came by. It got
Right?
tangled up in the wires.
Shocking, it's like bounties on Amazon drones. But yeah, so they did get their authorization to go ahead via the FAA. And so but they Amazon has come out and said that they still need some work before this is going to be viable. So but obviously they're going to begin testing, I would assume, pretty quickly. um so this also out of the FAA. They are seeking um companies who are willing to put forth white papers on efforts to identify, basically to get companies who could detect uh, drones around airports, basically. So it says the Federal Aviation Administration has issued a call for white papers in an effort to identify companies that build, integrate, and market systems or technologies designed to detect unmanned aircraft systems and avoid potential aviation risks from UAS operations. So they basically are just spamming this out there and trying to get people to companies who build basically counter UAS technologies to submit white papers for their perusal to identify companies to possibly test counter UAS technologies for airports. So, which I have some more stuff on some counter UAV later on this evening, which would be pretty interesting. So, um, they are looking to expand some of this. I think it says, yeah, the New Jersey's Atlantic City, um, I think, has one already, and they're looking to expand to 5 more
This is
um,
this is the detection
airports.
and encounter UAS.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then also, the FAA is going to begin testing a drone traffic management system in Rome, New York. Um, so it's selected by the FAA to work on developing a drone traffic management system and will begin testing this month. Um, so it joins the second phase of FAA's unmanned aircraft traffic management pilot program. Um, so obviously, they're people. Let's see. We couldn't be happier that the FAA has selected Oneida County's New York UAS test site to develop the next phase. So this will be something that will spool out, that RID will spool out of, essentially.
And I think
Uh,
there are 7 sites that were initially involved in in the IPP. So they'll probably be looking for vying for more contracts with the FAA. I think the
mhm.
UTM is one of the areas of monetization in the drone industry.
Oh,
All of the companies involved in UTM are large companies.
yeah, and I swear your screen capping my computer, Dave, because we're gonna drop this. So this comes from Forbes. uh, Precision Hawk has now patented unmanned air traffic control. So, um, yeah, the sigh. So, basically, they're saying that they are patenting this so that other companies who are seeking who are already in progress and who are seeking unmanned traffic control solutions obviously will need to pay royalties to Precision Hawk. So the article, if you as you go through reading it, it's also kind of a almost like a hit piece at the patenting process because stuff like this has happened before. So the patent
$63
that
billion in 5 years? That seems
so
crazy.
yeah, I mean if you think about it though, that companies are looking to spool off, whether it's drone delivery or drone services in some fashion or another, um they're going to be paying to use the unmanned air traffic control system. And I mean, it's a it can be a definite cash grab. So there's an on it says in the article there's an ongoing debate in the UAS industry about whether collision avoidance and traffic management is best handled by an overarching intelligent centralized system or on the ground or by sensors on the UAS themselves. Precision Hawk system falls into the former camp. Its first patent is for technology that allows drones to send real-time telemetry to servers to avoid collisions while in the air. And it's constantly broadcasting its location to ground servers via a radio frequency link. The second patent describes a means by which the drone operators transmit their flight plans to a traffic management server prior to a flight to see if there's a potential conflict. Um, it says the patents are purposely short on detail, declining to specify what types of onboard or ground system drones and servers will use, merely calling them a computing device. Details of the data transmitted, its mode, whether it's via cellular, satellite, or some future technology like photonic communication. Um, all those details are omitted. So it didn't. Let's see. Um, Precision Hawk is not the only firm in the drone industry with what could be described as a broad patent. Reno, Nevada-based drone delivery company Flirty issued a press release highlighting its patent for a parachute deployment system. And there are a lot of different companies who have, like, there's Parazero, I think, is one of the bigger ones. But theoretically, they would have to pay Flirty to uh, a royalty to develop their own parachute system through that patent. So it's pretty interesting that more and more of this is going down this road, especially with the controversy that's constantly kind of rising and falling within the FPV community of patents and clones and that kind of thing. And patents can be a very expensive process for some. So a lot of the startups and small companies within the FPV community can really be kind of grounded by a bigger company who decides to patent a particular piece of technology related to drones. So um, yeah, pretty interesting piece, and kind of jumps into that whole money making venture of UTMs, right?
It does. Yeah, I do think that the UTM focus is commercial, not
Yes.
recreational.
Yes.
And and Amazon is not a huge supporter of recreational, whereas our Google is the other one of the other UTM authors.
Yep. So I mean, it's definitely pretty interesting. This is coming out of the FCC. Um, and Aviation Today published this article. An FCC study supports using 5 gigahertz bands for drone operations. So I would fully expect that the 5 gigahertz spectrum, as more and more commercial enterprises kind of take to the skies, that there's going to be a definite saturation of the 5 gigahertz band.
Well, this
Um,
this is positive. I didn't see this.
yeah,
I need to read this article. This was what the tasking group that we presented in February was about.
Yep.
That in the 2018 Reauthorization Act, Congress mandated that the FAA, working with the FCC, working with um, the third body responsible for managing frequencies used by the federal government, get together and do just this: work on or figure out how to utilize the existing
Existing band.
bands and get them allocated permanently for UAS.
Yep.
So this is an important one.
So it says the FCC report requested by Congress in the FAA Reauthorization Act studied this portion of the C-band previously used for legacy microwave landing system precision radio guidance systems,
Yeah, so
but
it's
are
way at the
now,
low end of 5 gigahertz, it looks like.
yes, it is. It's down in the 5030 to 5091. And then as well as the 960 to 1164 megahertz portion of the L band, which I remember you talking about this extensively, Dave. Um, so the commission concluded that the 5 gigahertz band allocated for future ground to aircraft and satellite to aircraft communications is likely capable of supporting UAS operations. Um, FCC notes that drone users will probably be able to use these flexible use assignments faster than they could make use of the 5 gigahertz band, since there's already infrastructure and wireless standards in place for those assignments. Use of the L band, which would be the 960 to 1164 megahertz bands, was not recommended. However, with commenters, including Boeing and Airbus, expressing concern to the FCC that current services reliant on the band could be disrupted. Um, current, I think, existing use of the band uh, uses tactical separation services, so traffic alert and collision avoidance systems, ADS-B, air traffic control radar beacon system. So they opted to kind of push forward on the 5G band. So pretty interesting article there. Let's see. This I thought was interesting. This comes from Jane's, which is generally a military publication. Let's see. So this comes from Fordham Technologies. This is probably going to be more for military use, I would imagine. But as we know, military use often leads to civilian type uses. But this is a counter UAS system from Fordham Technologies. So it uses Fordham's Technology Sky Dome is an end-to-end system encompassing several elements that can be operated separately or as part of an integrated approach. It uses AI based software that includes a software package called ThreatAware, a capability that can analyze input from several sources and sensors, as well as the company's TrueView radar, which can help detect dark UASs that do not emit radio frequency or any other signals. So this is pretty interesting. And then it has it kind of commingles with a drone, basically called a drone hunter, that can intercept rogue UASs using a net tether. So pretty interesting, kind of complex. But
Yeah.
it takes care of autonomous type drones that aren't being controlled, that are programmed instead of controlled. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Definitely.
So this will get you going here, Dave. So Trump's ban on Chinese drones is making fighting wildfires harder, says a leaked memo. So generally we don't tend to get too political here, but we've been talking about the ban on Chinese drones.
Yeah.
And the U.S. Department of the Interior, which maintains federal land, has grounded its fleet of more than 800 drones over fears that they could be compromised by Chinese spies. Um, from an internal memo, says the decision is hampering the federal government's ability to fight wildfires. Without the drones, the department has been forced to use crewed aircraft to start fires. or not carry out. They use the drones for controlled burns, essentially. So they drop these little incendiary balls that they can use to start controlled burns. So yeah, I'll get to that in a second, Alex. Um, let's see. It says an internal analysis of the department found that by the end of the year, it will only have carried out 28% of the controlled burns that it planned to do with its fleet of new drones. Um, The original decision to ground the Interior Department's fleet is part of a wider effort by the Trump administration to restrict Chinese technology. The drone market in particular is dominated by Chinese manufacturer DJI. And when news of the grounding broke last year, the department said none of its drones used only American parts. Agency use of drones uses drones to not only control wildfires but to survey land and dams and monitor endangered wildlife. Um, Bernhardt noted that the drones could still be dispatched in emergency situations, including fighting natural disasters. But this provision does not seem to have extended to the purchasing of new hardware. So,
And to
uh,
respond to one of the questions we have here from Wash Bucket, we had someone give a talk from Department of Interior where I volunteer, and they were using only U.S. made drones. This was about 4 years ago. Did something change? Yeah, the article that Josh was just talking about listed 800. Numbers I've seen are 13 to 1,500 drones owned by the Department of the Interior, which were grounded this year. And this was even, and these were all DJI drones. This was after DJI rewrote the internal code, and they called it a
specifically for the Department of the Interior.
exactly, so that it in for sure would not talk to anyone anywhere, and that's still they're up against the ban that we're seeing is also incorporated in the Department of Defense reauthorization,
Yeah.
section 854 on the 3,400-page document.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting. I had an article. It was behind a paywall, but there are now five approved companies that the government can do business with for drones.
Yeah, I've got the list
Oh,
right
do you?
here. Yep.
It's behind the paywall for me. So
Yeah, give me a moment. I will find it.
perfect. Um, so let's see. This is pretty interesting, kind of on that same fire aspect.
Found it.
Oh, go ahead.
Skydio, Parrot, Altavanian, Teal Drones, and Vantage Robotics, all approved by DoD.
There you go.
And yes, most of them have
Chinese
Chinese
components.
manufactured components, which are explicitly called out in the DoD Reauthorization Act.
Just pretty interesting.
Yep.
This one. So they're using this fixed wing drone in oh gosh, the Cinnabar fire. I don't know where Cinnabar is. Didn't have time to check, but the rangers, the wildlife rangers, are using it to track fire, so they could see where the big plume was coming from the video. Um, and you could see they could tell kind of where they needed to go and kind of knew when the fire was going to die out when it ran out of fuel as far as unburned vegetation and whatnot. So um, the this particular one can fly at 12,000 feet for up to 12 hours at a time, which is pretty impressive. It looks like it's gas powered or some kind of fuel powered. Um, but um, pretty interesting the different ways that UAS are being used, especially to fight fires. Which brings me to I've got two companies that are based here in Arizona, where I'm from, uh, that are doing interesting things with drones and an interesting type of drone. So this is Axon, who originally, I think they got bought out, but they are the create they Tasers, Taser International. is now owned by Axon. And yes, exactly, control line drones. So Axon has partnered with a company called Photokite to who create tethered drones that can be launched from vehicles, whether it's a police or fire vehicle. They're built for first responders, and Axon, their products generally focus around first responders, obviously with tasers and body cams and that kind of thing. So originally or currently, Axon, I do have their Axon Air here. They're using the DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise Edition for that, and they are partnering it with specific software. So it's called Axon Evidence. So there's no SD card. It basically live streams directly to the software, and does so securely. Um, and they're using that same technology from the Photokite drone. And I do have, if you go to Photokite's website, which I will post here, they do have an example of it. So basically, on the top of a fire vehicle or a police vehicle, there's a little compartment that the drone can be launched from, and it's tethered, so it can fly indefinitely. They're saying 24 hours plus, that they can keep it in the air, because it's being supplied its power right, from the vehicle itself as opposed to onboard batteries. Um, so, and then obviously it's limited in its altitude. I think they're putting it at 150 feet, um, which will allow first responders to assess the situation before moving in further, or track a fire or anything like that. So pretty interesting innovations coming from there. And then last but not least, um, this is from Honeywell, and they have unveiled their next generation avionics lab for UAS, as well as for UAM, which is the first time I've heard that acronym, but it's Urban Air Mobility. So we've all seen kind of the people posting on Facebook, yep, flying cars, um, about the flying taxis and stuff like that. Well, Honeywell is specifically focusing on that, and they have built a new lab here in Phoenix, that showcases this technology, as well as a kind of like a flight simulator of sorts with actual controls and whatnot. So I'm wondering if I can give them a buzz and see if I can check that out, because it's not too far from me.
Yeah, you can. The first place you can buy a flying car is United Arab Emirates.
Oh
They are
yeah.
they are available. A little pricey, but
That's funny. So, pretty interesting stuff coming out of Honeywell as well. So, a lot of people have been really active during this COVID break in developing new things and new technologies. So, it's pretty interesting the stuff that's coming out. So, as far as news articles, that's about all I have. Uh, Pretty interesting.
we'll just swing back to the we mentioned it in passing. The
Hmm.
Department of Defense Reauthorization Act is stalled in the Senate, but it will pass because our military will need to be funded. It's stalled for more political reasons than anything else. But it was Section 854 is the almost verbatim the Senate 2502, which is the ban on federal agencies purchasing drones that are made in the identified countries, and China is, of course, the leader on that list. It is more than just BNF. It's now, as Josh was pointing out several weeks ago, it's gimbals and flight controllers and cameras and transmission data transmission devices, and some transceivers. So this, well, of course, the 5 companies that DoD mentioned, as we were saying, all have Chinese components. So we are headed to a situation where the federal government, if you are an agency of the government, you will be unable to purchase a Chinese drone or component. Or if you are taking federal funding for a drone program, like I think it's up to 118, 113 schools that the FAA has funded with grants for drone use. So if you're one of those colleges or universities around the country and you're picking up that funding, you will not be able to use that funding to purchase Chinese drones. So this, to me, is not a good direction. It is country of origin legislation, which is isolationist and doesn't do good things for our own kids getting into STEM, and it does not do good things for selling our own technology around the world. So this will be exactly. You know, we'll have difficulty sourcing hardware, and we'll have a hard time selling our own hardware in UAS.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there are, I mean, obviously there are countries where, you know, tech development, IC chip development, which is a lot of the components that are on our, flight controllers and transmitters and whatnot. There are other countries that do create those, but obviously the leader and both, production capability as well as price is China. And, while current issues aside, that's one thing that they excel at, and they have the capability to deliver on a broad scale. So the hard part is that most of the commonly available parts for like STEM programs and whatnot, uh they're coming from they have components that come from China. And um, you know, whether we're going to start building that stuff here in the U.S. or we're relying on our allies that we do trust to create those things, it's not going to be to the scale that we are used to, and it's going to make uh, the job of creating a STEM project or maintaining one even more difficult. If you take federal grants essentially. So
Oh. There was another FAA announcement that caught our attention, and that is that there was a available way beyond visual line of sight waiver for first responders. So that if you're responding to an emergency, obviously this needs to all be done before the fact. You can work with a emergency response personnel and fly a drone legally beyond visual line of sight. The requirement that really caught my attention was that you have to have a um, Part 61 license, so a civil general aviation um, uh, license, and so that's a license to carry people, and so that's not an easy license to get. It's expensive. It's time consuming to get it, and it seems to us a little over the top from the perspective of proportionate regulation to risk. So, but that's what the FAA released this week. And we're hoping that this is linking general aviation licensing with UAS restrictions and regulations. We're hoping this is not a precedent, but we're worried that it might be tactical BVLOS. Yeah, exactly the right title. Thank you, Alex. And we're hoping that this is not the precedent that we see coming down the pike with remote ID final rule.
yeah, absolutely.
Ah, yes.
Do you have any more to that you want to add, Alex?
Uh, I'm gonna see if I can find the PDF they showed us, where
Okay.
I had a bunch of information on that. But other than that, not really.
Okay. Yeah, and if you cannot find it immediately, if you can post it here, we all would be interested.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't remember if they shared it with us or not, so I'm
Oh,
seeing if they did.
understood. Yep. Thank you.
All right. So, Dave, anything else?
Wrapping up the presentation for safety culture with the Drone Advisory Committee. That's let's say the next stack is October 22. It will be virtual, so they will be live streaming it. So that's that presentation will be a comeback to the Drone Advisory Committee, and this will be presented by a tasking group, a group of us, about 30. And we will present the results and make recommendations to the DAC to provide to the FAA.
All right. I just added the tackle BV loss, their waiver guide that they shared with us.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex.
Perfect.
So that's pretty much what they gave us about that.
Cool. All right. XJet, did anybody watch New Zealand's Ministry of Transport outline its plans for drone regulations? No, but I heard something about it. You want to expand on it?
Is my microphone working?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. Yeah. They did a number of surveys over a couple of years trying to get the information that was necessary to support their case, and their cases for compulsory registration, compulsory licensing, compulsory certification, and a remote ID system. Goodness me, we're going to be worse off than the USA because an arm of the government is developing its own UTM that they want to push on all drone users, and this is the best way to do it. Just make a law that requires it to be mandatory. It's absolutely gobsmacking what they've done.
Goodness. Well, any idea when that's supposed to be rolling out?
Well, they're talking about formalizing their plans towards the end of this year, so it's only a few months away. And then, of course, they'll put it out for consultation. And just as in America, thousands of people say no, and then they'll just, like in America, probably ignore all those complaints. They have to consult, but they don't have to listen.
Yeah, December is going to be a heck of a month for drone stuff
worldwide. Yeah, for sure. And we've
got to do something to to reduce the death toll. It's getting outrageously out of hand.
I know, right?
So Bruce, other than your reckless incursions with a tiny whoop, what motivated this?
The same as everywhere else. It's money. The government has what they call a state-owned enterprise, which is a company that it uses to earn money. So it's a form of indirect taxation. And this company wants to set itself up as a global UTM. It has plans to export their UTM system all around the world. But really, someone's been smoking something really bad, and they've got these delusions of grandeur. So they want to basically force New Zealanders to use this UTM, so then they can go to the world and say, we've got thousands of people using our UTM, whereas elsewhere in the world, companies are sort of all vying to be the UTM, but no one's actually being the UTM yet. You got in America, everyone's trying to get a share of that pie, but New Zealand wants to be able to walk out and say, well, we've already got all these users, we're proven.
Right. So what's the name of the company in New Zealand?
AirShare.
AirShare.
In fact, it's been a bit clever because what they've done is
part of that. Was Google Wing part of that?
No. What they did in New Zealand was they set up this site for drone users. They called it an information site, called it AirShare, and said we encourage drone users to go and log their flights on this site. It'll keep a log of your flights, all that sort of stuff. Recreational users too. So they want people to go along and use it. And now they're saying we already have thousands of flights a year logged through our site, even though it's not a UTM, but they trick people into going there and logging their flights so they can claim that all these people are already using AirShare, even though it's just the website. It's not actually a UTM. It's terrible.
Goodness me. Between that and India's new rules and ours coming up, it'll be an interesting perspective on the future of recreational.
Yeah. Did anybody else see that? What was it? The Department of Transportation is going to spend $1 billion upgrading airports around the country.
Yeah, I did.
I wonder
1.5 billion.
1.5. I wonder how that may affect us. Or are more airports going to get towers and more controlled airspace, or anything else like that?
Yeah,
well,
I downloaded the PDF and looked at the what the purpose of each of the spending was for, and it looked like a lot of blocking and tackling, and runway,
Sure.
repair.
They're not going to
tower
put
repair.
anti-drone detection on every airport around the country. That's not what the money's
but
for.
I was looking for something like that. I couldn't find anything that even gave me a hint of like electronic infrastructure, any pseudonym like that.
Well, that's good. They're not at least putting it in there and trying to hide it.
Right.
Well, I mean, after that shared report came out, where they basically warned people from tackling that project,
Right. And then they're asking for volunteers.
Yep. So pretty interesting how they're kind of flip-flopping directions. So it's government, so give them 5 minutes and they'll change their mind.
Yeah.
So at any rate, anybody else have anything to share?
We're now 3/4 of the way through 2020, so that's a positive.
Yes.
So I heard
Let's just hope
Shrimplets there was
2021.
trying to talk, but I couldn't hear what they were saying.
Shrimplets, what were you saying, bud? You went okay.
We lost him.
Might have been ambient noise.
Yeah, it could have been. All right. Well, on that note, we're almost through 2020. Hopefully next year is better, and hopefully December doesn't shoot us all in the foot.
Yes,
you flew your
not
first
over
build
yet.
this week. Dirty
First
Rat flew his
build.
first build. What did you build?
Yes, excellent. Well done.
That's awesome.
And the duration of the flight was? Oh, look at this.
Yeah, I know Dirty Rat's been in our Discord quite a bit, getting help and talking about the build.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well
Brutal
done.
crash. That's awesome.
Sorry about the crash.
Hey, we've all crashed.
Yeah.
I think
fixed. Excellent.
Good. I had a buddy. It was right when I was starting the hobby, who decided to race another guy in our group through the park, and my buddy had a knack at the time for completely breaking his drone. So we teased him all the time that he was the ultimate parts tester, because he would definitely put it through its paces. So they were racing around trees through the park, and my buddy clipped the edge of a branch, and not that it's a good analogy, but to me it looked like the Challenger. So it hit the tree and it all stayed together, and then about 30 feet later it all just kind of split apart, and battery went one way, GoPro went another way, arm went that way, body went that way. It was just a disaster of a crash. And that was the first time I learned what a crash could actually do to a drone.
Regarding crashing, I haven't actually crashed that much being in Wisconsin. It was mostly just trees, parks, and things. 2 weeks ago, I went to Detroit to go hit up the bandos with the Detroit quad crew. And I think I went with 8 working, came home with 8 broken.
Oh no!
I smashed 3 GoPros, all of which I had the warranty on. So,
wow!
But no, the bando environment is
ouch.
by
Concrete,
far the roughest
pavement
that
is awful.
I mean, I broke arms that were 6 mil thick, and I've moved the frames now that are 7 and 8 thick.
Yeah.
I swear my drone has like this magnetic force to pavement and concrete. I can be flying over grass all day and nothing. The second you go over like a sidewalk, it just drops out of the sky and hits the sidewalk.
We don't, here in Phoenix, we don't have a lot of bandos, but a lot of construction sites. So we used to go into construction sites, and it's pure steel and concrete out here. So steel substructure, and then concrete, and and a lot of rebar. And we would go in there, and not only is your signal just crap because of all the metal, but you crash one time and you're done for the day. It's crazy. So
yeah, there was
definitely feel that.
There was a guy practicing. He'd been at it for 2 weeks, and he was flying in a football field. It looked like, and I thought, oh, and it was no one there, and he's using the goalposts as a practice to power loop, and it was
Yeah.
perfect. He was flying over grass the entire time. Yes, I'm sure he had a spotter. we all have spotters.
We all have spotters. All right. Well, I guess on that note, I'll give you back 10 minutes, and y'all have a great week, good rest of your week, and we'll see you guys next time. And thank
Yeah.
you for coming, guys. We
Hopefully
really
see you in
appreciate
2
it.
weeks.
Absolutely.
Yes. And take care and be safe, everyone.
All right, take care.
For sure.